welcome to the Animal Training Academy Making Ripples podcast show, the show where we share the stories of the ripple-making extraordinaires with behavior nerd superpowers who make up the Animal Training Academy membership. I'm your host and one of the happiness engineers at Animal Training Academy, Shelly Wood from Drop Your Jaws Dog Training in Cape Girardeau, Missouri in the United States. We're absolutely thrilled and grateful to have you here with us today. Make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode. This show is brought to you on behalf of the Animal Training Academy membership. So if you like the conversations in these episodes, then we want to invite you to continue them with like-minded people in the ATA membership, which you can find out more about at www.atamember.com. Within the membership, you can get access to twice monthly live web classes, the back catalog of previous web class replays, plus a huge library of videos and projects to help you problem solve your training challenges. And we're a sociable bunch with an exclusive private Facebook group and forums area. It's like a Netflix social media platform for animal behavior geeks. Jess Ghali lives in Marulan, Australia, with her spouse Mick and dogs Pedro, Ninja, and Phoebe. She has been working with dogs professionally since 2013 and now owns Serenity Scentwork, where she runs canine nosework classes, including free sniff Fridays, providing an opportunity to those in less fortunate positions in the local community to participate. Jess studied nosework with NACSW, has completed Kim Brophy's Legs Applied Ethology course, Susan Friedman's LLA, and is a certified professional dog trainer knowledge assessed through the CCPDT. Jess is passionate about bringing attention to the emotional dimensions of animal care professions, with a special interest in compassion fatigue and burnout within the community of animal care professionals. In her time off, Jess enjoys swimming with her dogs as well as gardening and baking. Welcome, Jess.
Hey, Shelly, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing today?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. I am really excited to have you on this show. I have been wanting to talk to you for a while. I know you have just lots of interesting stuff going on, and I'm really interested in diving into all of it, including some of the changes that I know that you've made in your business and kind of professional life recently, but lots of other stuff as well. So let's dive right in. Why don't you start us out by telling us just a little bit about your story, how you started working with animals and what you're doing with animals these days?
Yeah, definitely. So I started, I guess, my working adult career just doing a general admin reception job. Sort of finished high school and went on a big European holiday with some friends and came back and went, I need some cash flow to pay back my parents who lovingly funded the trip. But so I just, sort of grabbed the first job I could going back in. And I was really happy in it for, the first couple of years. And then I just hit this slump where I'm like, you know what, I'm not, it's got no loftier purpose. I'm not doing this for anyone or for anything. And I remember speaking to a friend and she said, well, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grow up? And I said, well, I wanted to work with elephants. And she goes, okay, so go work with elephants. And I'm like, I could do that? So I enrolled at Taronga Zoo in Sydney as part of their training course to be a zookeeper. Got partway through it and one of the teachers or instructors there was Peter Clark, who had pivoted into doing dog stuff, like dog-related training for films and shows and those sorts of things. And just everything that she talked about just got me so excited. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think it actually might be dogs. So pivoted again. Started in a boarding kennel doing like a board and train type thing. Yeah, so COVID hit and I lost my, yeah, you're okay. Yeah, so unfortunately then it was COVID, so I lost my job at the boarding kennel there. So decided to start my own dog training business, which was absolutely terrifying. And started out, just doing some puppy preschools, in the local area, partnered up with a doggy daycare there. And that was great for a while, but it wasn't 100% the right fit. So I started doing some one-on-one private behavior consults. And as I got further into those, I started suffering and struggling with what I can now identify as compassion fatigue and burnout. I wasn't aware that that was what it was back then. A lot to do with, I think, just the quantity of clients that I was expecting myself to be able to see and service on a regular basis. And also just the nature, I think, of not all, but some companion animal owners that just expect some slightly unrealistic things sometimes. And, the dog's best interests and what they wanted would often clash. And it was just a bit clunky and awkward. So continuing along the scent work side of things, I was often, attending Peter Clark workshops and those sorts of things, and going to all the conferences I could, listening to people speak like Ken Ramirez and Mike Shikashio and Susan Friedman and all those amazing, wonderful people. Not realizing that the whole time I had actually been taking my dogs to nosework classes as a student, and that I was really enjoying that and absolutely loved that. So I started looking into doing that as a job, and becoming an instructor there. So I've gone through that and I'm hosting classes now. Absolutely loving hosting those classes. And recently I've just started those free sniff Fridays. So I don't know if you guys would have seen him over there, but there's a guy on YouTube called Tim the Lawn Mowing Man. And basically he knocks on people's doors on a Friday and offers to mow their lawn for free. And it's just this, like, sponsors get behind him, and it's just this really just sort of warm, pure, just heartfelt donation of his area of skill and expertise for no other reason just than to help and just to be nice and be kind. And often I find if I'm in a little bit of a rut and I'm stuck, giving kind of helps release that and gets juices flowing again, and just helps me feel a bit less stuck. It just gets some momentum going in again. So this year I've decided to start free sniff Fridays, which is basically a 30-minute nosework session where people can just drop in, or they can register online, and just come in and learn and see what it's about. And so, this week I had a school teacher, and it's currently school holidays, so she can't normally attend the days and times that I have classes available. So she came in the school holidays. And I had a lovely 11-year-old lab that's been trying to find, like, her owner's been trying to find something that was good for her mentally and physically, but she's 11 and she's a lab, and so she's sore and stiff when she would come back from a walk and those sorts of things. So nosework slotted in really well for her. And yeah, it's just really nice to have something that I believe in so wholeheartedly, and it's just so wholesome, and it's just something that I can give away for absolutely nothing. It doesn't cost me anything. And all of these dogs are getting something, more than just the same walk around the block that they get every single day. And the people are getting something other than the same walk around the block that they do every day. And just realizing, that there's this whole other world out there of physical and mental enrichment that they can be doing with their dogs. So yes, that was a really long-winded explanation of how I spend my days now. My freedoms at home keep me busy, forever running around with those three. But yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing all of that with us so far, Jess. And I just want to commend you on your bravery and your, willingness to be persistent, to keep pushing forward, to define what it is that you want to do, and then go out and figure out how to do that. I think it's awesome. I was thinking when you were talking about you got back from Europe, how long did you spend in Europe? I'm just kind of curious about that.
It's a very long time ago. it was about a month. Like it
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
long,
Well, what
but
a great
yeah.
opportunity for you to be able to do that. But when you got back and I think you said you were you were doing the admin work and kind of struggling with figuring out what it was you wanted to do. And I think you said you were talking to a friend who said, well, what did you want to do when you were a kid? It just really struck me how I think for so many people, we have these ideas about things that we're passionate about and things that we want to pursue as adults. And I think for too many of us, somewhere along the way, that becomes not practical, or, for whatever reason, we just don't pursue it. And so I think it's really cool that you, with a little bit of prompting from her, had the bravery and the curiosity to go out there and say, yeah, I'm going to do that. And then to continue to let your environment shape you as you discovered and continue to discover different things that you want to do. So I think
Hmm.
you've got a great story. Go ahead.
Thank you. Um, Pivoting has always been something that's quite difficult for me. I have always sort of seen it as kind of a personality flaw that, what you chose, like it's sort of that decision's not going to last forever. Like it was always uncomfortable to pivot, but also I had a lot of baggage around what it said about me at the fact that, I was chopping and changing my mind like people chop and change their underwear, like pivoting through all of these different. And now I can look back and go, no, that's a really normal evolution and growth. But every single one of those pivots to me at the time was sort of an existential crisis of, well, if I'm not a dog trainer, who am I? And what does it say about me if I thought this was it, but then I've changed? What kind of person does that make me? And so I had to do a lot of work in letting that go. And something as simple as, a free shaping session with a dog, if I was teaching a dog something as simple as a hand target or whatever it was, that if they weren't learning, that wasn't their fault and it wasn't my fault. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was just I would pivot and do something slightly differently. And so I've been talking to Colleen Pilar in some private coaching sessions and sort of trying to work through that a little bit, in terms of that, you get this one wild and precious life. So why is, pivoting to the thing that makes you happy and the thing that you're actually meant to do, why I put so much guilt and weight and baggage and everything on that, and sort of, that it's not wrong or bad, and that any of these new directions that I might take doesn't necessarily make any old ones wrong. Like now I can look back and go, it was such a normal evolution and progression through all of these steps, rather than at the time I was layering so much weight and guilt on every single time that I would pivot, going, what does it say about me? And all those sorts of things. Whereas I could so easily see myself pivoting in a training session if a dog needed me to, and that was no one's fault. So it was just sort of extrapolating that out back to myself. And, if I need to pivot another 10 times to find what it is that I'm meant to be doing and what it is that makes me happy, then that's what we're doing.
It's really interesting for me to hear you say that you did have all that, or are working through now, some feelings about pivoting that you felt like it was less than desirable quality, maybe, so it's really interesting to hear you say that. And it makes me just say once again, and even stronger, that just like what bravery and what an amazing, I guess, growth mindset, really, to embrace those changes and seek those changes, even though it was making you, it sounds like, really uncomfortable to do so. Would you say?
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And in a couple of the jobs that I've had, I have taken sort of, new trainers under my wing and gone, when I was starting out, no one told me this, but this and this is normal. And you're not the only one that feels like this. And that, compassion fatigue and burnout are a thing and they happen. And, maybe not everybody loves puppy preschool. I don't particularly. And, when you're starting out, they're puppies. They're cute. Like everybody just should love them. And, but there's a whole other host of dynamics that come with that. So, that it's perfectly okay and that these struggles are normal and can be talked about rather than sort of where and when and how I was sort of coached and trained. No one ever really talked about it. And it wasn't that they did it on purpose. It was just not at the forefront of really anyone's mind. It wasn't considered a huge component of what it is that we go through. And I don't know what the stats are like over in the States, but I think in Australia, like the veterinary profession has something like the number 2 highest suicide rate in the country for professions. And it's just, it just needs to be talked about, and it just needs to be normalized.
Yeah, it's really stark over here too in that regard as far as veterinary professionals, and I think a lot of caring professionals, and which includes, of course, those of us who work with animals. You mentioned that you're working with Colleen. Is it Pilar? Did I say that right, or Pilar? I'm not sure.
I say Pilar, but
okay.
You might have to ask her.
I don't know if you want to, for people who aren't familiar with Colleen, do you want to maybe tell folks just a little bit about what she does?
Yes. So how I actually found her was through her podcast called Unleashed at Work and Home. And basically she talks about the emotional side of pet professionals, and everything that comes along with that. And she's just such a knowledgeable resource on all of this stuff. It's absolutely amazing. So if you haven't heard of her or checked her out, the Pet Professionals Unleashed podcast is absolutely one to put on your list.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, she's been on the main Animal Training Academy show as a guest with Ryan before too. Do you know? Is that okay? I thought so.
Yeah, she has. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So folks can check that out, and they can check her podcast out as well to see all of the lovely resources that she offers. I also wanted to, I want to dive in. I know we're going to dive in a lot more, I think, to some of this stuff, maybe as we move through the questions and talk a little bit more about some of what we've just been talking about, as far as the shifts that you've made in your profession and that kind of thing. But before we go any further into that, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you are in a nosework course yourself right now. Is that like an nosework instructor course, or awesome? And is that through the NACSW, or what course is that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The National Association of Canine Scent Work. So you go through tiers. So it's prospective, associate, and then certified. So I'm at associate at the moment. And then once I submit the rest of my assessments and those sorts of things, I'll graduate to certified.
Well, that is super exciting. And it sounds like you've really been enjoying that course. Wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's those of you in Australia, I will warn you, but it's run sort of a 9 to 5. You've got 2 4-day segments that are run sort of 9 to 5 US time via Zoom. So there's a lot of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. wake ups if you're in Australia, but it's only for 4 days in a row. It's only twice, and it's freaking worth it.
Wonderful. I'm excited that you're doing that for yourself and for others in your community as well that are so lucky to get to learn from you. I would love it if we could dive a little bit deeper. I think you've already kind of started talking about this a little bit with some of the things that you've been talking about the shifts that you've made in your professional career. But let's chat a little bit more about a recent training-related challenge you've experienced and how you have worked through it or are working through it, and some things you're learning through that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I would say I was trying to come up with examples of client dogs that I have worked with, and then realized that my compassion, fatigue, and burnout journey really is my training-related challenge. How I've worked through it, I'm still working through it. What I've learned could take us all year to talk about, and I'm still learning all of it. But yeah, I think really the big piece that Colleen has helped me come away with is that just anything and everything is not a unique experience. Like there is always going to be somebody else out there that has similar struggles, and a problem shared is a problem halved. Like you don't have to take all of this on by yourself. It's not, you're not wrong, you're not abnormal, you're not atypical, you're not strange, you're not any of those things. And that compassion fatigue and burnout are I guess, I'm sure not for everyone, but they are really common and really okay parts of the human experience that we all move through from time to time, especially in care-related careers. Even caring for humans, I'm sure it's just as rife over there. Caring for animals comes with a different sort of set of struggles, but any sort of caregiving career, it's really there, and it needs to be talked about. There's no good served pretending that it doesn't exist.
So yeah, I'm sure it hasn't been easy. And I think that, one of the things that really stuck out to me, it seems like a big piece of your challenge, or one of the pieces, I don't know if I should say a big piece of it, but one of the pieces of your challenge was really that when you were at that place where you decided you really didn't want to do, and please tell me if I'm not characterizing this correctly, but it sounds like you were at a place where you discovered, you really just didn't want to do pet dog training, that it wasn't feeding your needs, I guess, and that maybe some of the expectations from humans about what they needed or wanted from their dogs weren't things that were lining up well for you. And I see you nodding, so it's good that I'm on track with characterizing part of that, right? At least. And I think that, talking about there's always someone else who has similar struggles. Well, I'm here to tell you that I'm having a majorly similar struggle to yours, the one that you have articulated.
It's a very important thing for me to say that when I said that, no, your experience isn't unique and there's always someone out there that's struggling with the same thing as you are, I don't mean that to belittle or undermine in any way, shape, or form anything that anyone is feeling. I just mean it to say that you're not alone.
Absolutely. And you are not alone.
Because it can feel really isolating. Thank you. Neither are you. You're also not alone. Yeah.
And I think that part of that for me, and I'm curious if you think this too, but I think I saw, I feel like I saw as you were trying to express that. And I know as I'm trying to express it right now, I think that both of us are trying to be really careful not to put blame on people who, on these guardians of these dogs who have these expectations.
100%. Yeah.
I think that,
because they're the learners too in this, you don't know what you don't know. They're the learners in this too. It's not their fault. It's just, it's the perfect storm of people that love to care about other people tend to have, lacks of boundaries. And it's just this perfect storm of our caring and our lack of boundaries, and then they're either ill-informed or just uninformed. And again, that's not their fault. And yeah, you're absolutely right that we're not trying to blame them. And then the dog sort of just gets stuck in the middle. And yeah, you're absolutely right that they're not to blame 100%.
And I think that part of it is that the societal expectations that that kind of world puts out through advertising and social media and different places really shape what people think their dogs, how their dogs should be and how they should behave. Yeah. Would you
and those are the exact same things that told me that I shouldn't pivot, that told me that I was flimsy or flaky or untrustworthy for pivoting how I wanted to spend my life and what I wanted to do. They're the exact same things. And I say it a million times a week, just you do you. Like if it works for you, then that's okay. And there's a whole bunch. It's one of the reasons that I love nosework and scent work, especially the therapeutic side of it, is that, like, yeah, there's guidelines and there's rules, especially with an association, about how you're supposed to conduct your classes. But I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you can come in and your dog's having fun and you're comfortable, then who cares? Like, what else matters? And yeah, look, there's titles and there's ribbons and there's trials and there's all of that great stuff. And if you and your dog are those kinds of people, then that's fantastic. But I also have anyone that's part of the ATA Engage private Facebook community members area will have seen my little boy Pedro that's been up there 100 times in various posts and whatnot. And he's had a lot of to put labels on them, anxiety and resilience and lack of confidence struggles. And I just remember he has given me more sort of goosebump tear in the eye moments watching his progression through what I've learned through nosework. So for a specific example, I remember I set up a tower of boxes once, and I had food on multiple levels of the tower, some of which was on top. And I remember him sort of sniffing around and looking up and down and knowing the food was there, but just going, it's just not worth it. And then something happened. He accidentally bumped it or tapped it with his tail or his foot or something. The whole tower came crumbling down in this crash of cardboard, and the food scattered everywhere. And he just went and legged it out of the room at warp speed. And I've gone, oh God, what have we done? And so while I'm sitting there chastising myself, he pokes his head back around the corner and goes, and then comes in and sort of eats all the food off the floor. And I'm like, okay, like maybe not so bad. A week later, I set up that same puzzle again, but I made it much smaller and much simpler to solve. I didn't need to. He walked in, looked at this thing and went, right, walked up to it, just went smack, knocked the whole thing over. Food went flying everywhere. And he was just so excited and so happy because he knew exactly how to solve this problem. And it's been a really hard thing for me as his dog mum to let him work through stuff and help, but not in quotey air fingers, help. Like, don't help too much, so much so that you're getting in the way. And it's one of my favorite parts to work with people on in nosework sessions is that teamwork and that independence and that trust that they need to have in their teammate, because so often, in air quotes, they help. They, cue and prompt and move stuff and change stuff. And one of the best advice I ever got from a trainer way back when was stop moving the goalposts. just hold them there for a minute, let them go left. Oh crap, I missed it. Right. Oh crap, I missed it. Okay, I got it. If we move it every single time, they're like, hang on a second, I was working towards it. Like I almost had it and then you moved it.
That's a great story about Pedro, and that what sounds like a real confidence builder for him with the nose work and knocking those boxes down. Sounds like it was a really good learning experience for him and for you, given that you adjusted your behavior the next time too, even though you didn't need to. He was prepared to knock him down and go. I wonder, do you think that, I think a lot of the things that probably your average pet guardian wants from their dog. I think a lot of folks want their dogs to be kind of calm and not have a lot of behaviors like barking excessively or chewing things up in the house, or, just kind of all these kind of common challenges that come with dogs sometimes. Do you think that nose work can help with those things ever?
It's one of the reasons I love it. So something that I say really often, especially to my beginners, is that it's a safe space. Anything that the dog does isn't wrong. Like if they chew up a box, it's cardboard. It was going in the recycling anyway. Like if they stomp on it and wreck it or pee on it or whatever, like it's okay. And this ties in really well with sort of my pivoting journey, I think, because there's there's a humility in being brave enough to try new things. It keeps you humble. And while being brave is hard, it's one of the reasons that I love nosework is because it's such a paradigm shift for the human to get used to trusting the dog and letting them do stuff that might be embarrassing or might be frustrating or might be just less than desirable. So it's flexing muscles for the human to allow that to happen, which for a lot of people is really hard. And it's also an experience for the dogs to go, oh, I'm allowed to get it wrong and then try again. And the humans can get it wrong and try again. And I can get it wrong and try again. It's just this big pressureless space, which is why I think I love it so much. It lets us try stuff and pivot safely with no consequences. Not no consequences, but safely is the word that I'm after.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it just seems like such a great way to get people involved and dogs involved in that learning journey that you have just described, trying new things out and learning what works and doesn't in a safe environment. Mm-hmm. And it also just seems like such a wonderful way to help dogs engage in species typical behavior and maybe avoid boredom that some dogs have in homes.
And I didn't realize how much Kim Brophy's legs applied pathology course tied into it. But I've got a particular client at the moment that has a German Shepherd, surprise, surprise, has lead reactivity issues and lives in suburbia and has lead reactivity issues. Who'd have known? And he comes to class and he can be mid-search, look up, a dog crosses the road and he's like, yeah, whatever. And then just goes back to the search and everybody's jaw hits the floor. And that's got to be one of my favorite things. Like when the clients get goosebumps and just get that, oh my God, yes, thank God, everything that we've been trying like is finally starting to get somewhere. It's just, it's one of the reasons that I love it. I love it so much.
That's awesome. And I think that I might be wrong about this, but I think that you said something earlier, like kind of feeling guilty about not wanting to do pet dog training because that's what people want and that's what people need sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder if, or it just kind of makes me think that our expectations or our thoughts about how to get there might be sometimes a little off the mark. Like maybe we can.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So that resonates.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. And that as soon as, that ethology course gave me sort of the tools to explain to this German Shepherd's dog mum, look, this is who he is. This is what we've been designed for X amount of years. I saw her start to relax, going, "Oh my God, this isn't my fault." It's not the dog's fault, and it's not her fault, and it's not my fault, and it's not the world's fault. It just is. And as soon as you can start to work, it's that old: if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree, it'll spend its whole life thinking that it's stupid. It's you play to their strengths, and every dog out there was sniffing from essentially the moment that they're born, I think, before their eyes open at the very least. So they're really well equipped to be doing it. And I love watching the differences between the breeds. So I mean, I've got a bloodhound that does it, who his name is Bert, and we all say that he runs on Bert time because he just goes his own speed. But genetically, he has so much information that he is sorting. And then, and I'm crudely, generalizing here, but then you've got the border collie that does a lap first and goes, right, you're where you should be. That's where it should be. Right. Okay. Now I can go. Oh yeah. The lab that comes in and just tears all the boxes apart and eats all the food and smashes everything everywhere and is loving life and having the best time. But then occasionally you'll have a breed that comes in that you expect something of and just doesn't do it. does the exact opposite to what you're expecting. And I love the humility that comes with it, of just, you can, prepare for everything and anything, and then, hello, don't work with dogs or children, but they just come in and they're like, yeah, not today.
Well, I think that,
and again, pivoting in that situation isn't wrong or bad. It's just what the situation called for, and that's okay.
yeah, for sure. And I think those are great examples of paying attention to the individual in front of us. And I imagine that your classes are lovely relationship building opportunities for these people and their dogs, and hopefully have lots of great benefits to them or for them as well. Like you were talking about that shepherd and his not barking in the class, right?
Yeah. And one of my best friends has a Collie Cross Kelpie who typically doesn't like proximity, doesn't like being recalled or touched or grabbed or anything in, sort of really close quarters. We're supposed to be working out here. And so, one of the exercises that we do in nosework is when their dog has their head down in a box, mum comes up and adds in some extra food. And the first couple of times the dog went, but then has gotten really used to mum coming in and getting close and that not being a bad thing. So then that's extrapolated out to their relationship in the real world in terms of their recall and that sort of stuff as well. So it just oozes out. There's just so much that it does for relationship and confidence and all sorts of things.
Yeah, you clearly don't need to feel, well, I can't tell you what to feel, but it certainly doesn't seem like you need to feel any guilt about shifting to nosework, because it sounds like you're probably still meeting those needs the pet dog people have, and maybe even more effectively. So that's awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Could you share with us, you started to talk about it a little bit earlier, but I would love to hear a little bit more about your free sniff Fridays, if you have anything else to talk about that.
Yeah. So, basically I have my normal sessions, and then at the end, I just stay back at the hall, set up a couple of boxes and some really quite basic sort of setups for that I would for my beginners on week one. And people can either enroll online or they can just walk in. And so all the same rules apply. Dog and handler teams work one at a time and all those sorts of things. But it just gives people an opportunity to come in and see what it's about without any financial pressure, but also without any time pressure. Because a lot of times people look at a 6-week course and go, oh, I'm a school teacher, so I can't make that day or that time, or those sorts of things. So it's just a really nice sort of come and try, no strings attached type thing that I'm hoping gives people and their dogs something to do together that isn't just the same old walk around the block.
I love it. Well, thank you for offering that for people. I'm sure that your community really appreciates that as well. And it seems like a great way to get folks introduced to training and to nosework, and to just get people out doing stuff that they and their dogs can enjoy together.
Yeah, out doing stuff with your dog. At the end of the day, that's it.
That's what it's all about. Well, Jess, I'd love to hear from you now about a recent training situation that you are proud of, and or one that you have found reinforcing.
Yeah, so we're going to stretch the word recent ever so slightly. And again, those in the Training Academy membership will have met Pedro before and know that we've had some difficulty with getting in the car and traveling in the car. And I've implemented a little bit of nosework here too. Obviously, once he had enough experience with the game that the car wasn't going to taint it. But, I've put boxes of food and stuff in the car as well to sort of get him a bit more comfortable there. I think we spent the better part of a year with him and me in the garage with the car off and all the doors open. And licky mats on the back seat, all sorts of stuff. And I can't even remember or tell you why, but we started getting some traction. And it got to the point where when we go for an outing, I'd put his harness on, open the boot. He would willingly jump in the car. I could close the boot. We'd drive a whole 700 meters to the park. And then I'd let him out. We'd go for a big run and a sniff. And then he would jump in the car and we would drive 700 meters home. And we did that a couple of times a week for, I reckon, a couple of months. And it got so normal that I forgot how long and hard we worked to get there. And then we moved house. And of course, that involved a 90-minute car trip, which he had to make. And so we lost a little bit of trust in that bank account in there, and now the context is different and all sorts of stuff. So we're climbing back through that all over again. But yeah, that kid makes me proud. Far out, he makes me proud. And he, out of, I don't know, the hundreds of clients and client dogs that I have touched and worked with and talked to, he's met one. But his story, I swear, has been told so many times that it's gone around the world, and someone's going to tell his story back to me one day because he is just the dog that has helped, I think, the most people and the most dogs just by his story and his journey, even though no one's even met him, because he is absolutely the dog I didn't want but needed. And he has just helped me grow, and I've been honoured to be in his life and be able to help him, because I just know that if he was in many other places, he probably wouldn't still be with us given his struggles. So yeah, he makes me proud.
Well,
he keeps me humble. He keeps me on my toes.
I'm glad that you two have each other. And I remember when you were working on the car challenge with him, and some of the videos that you shared in Animal Training Academy of him hopping in and out of the vehicle and all of that. So I'm sorry that you've had a setback because of your recent move and change and such, but that's the kind of thing is to be expected, I think. And I will actually be looking forward to hopefully seeing some more videos of you working through this again and getting him back to where he was before on the car challenge.
And the good news is that where we live now, it's a lot less essential that he needs to be able to get in the car to safely experience the world and get enrichment and veterinary care and those sorts of things. So that's positive, I guess. But yeah, we'll get there. And if we don't, we'll work with it and work around it. And that's okay too.
Yeah, it sounds like a major positive that you live in a place where it's not quite as necessary for him to be in the car as much now. So
definitely.
That will give you all the time that you need to work on it and get him back where he needs to be before he has to travel, hopefully. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And he was a big reason why we chose to live where we are. Because I'm sure, I know I'm not the only person out there that, buys a house because this could be the dog room and we could do this here. And I 100% know that I'm not the only person that does that. So, but between the three of them, they were a contributing factor of why we chose to move to where we moved. And just seeing him, be able to have just the space and the peace and quiet to just decompress and just be a dog is freaking beautiful. And I mean, he's close to 7 now, and he's doing stuff for the first time that my 9-month-old puppy has been doing since day dot. But it's just so beautiful to see him finally being able to come into his own. So moving to the country, 100% recommend.
Well, you're right. You're not the only person. Once again, I can assure you, you're not alone. I bought the house that I am in currently because of my dogs. Jess, I think you had one more training situation maybe you were going to share with us, maybe about nosework situation that you were proud of or found reinforcing.
Yeah. And I sort of touched on it a little bit before, but my favorite one is when reactive dogs see a dog mid-search and are able to disengage often and keep working on the game. That's got to be my all-time favorite part.
Yeah, I can see where that would be really reinforcing. And it seems like, I don't know if I said this when we were talking about it before or not, but it seems like nosework could be a really cool bridge for people to begin to work on some of those challenges, like reactivity or whatever challenges they might be having with their dogs. You agree? I see you nodding.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as, you've got to just make sure that your foundations are solid enough before you go, obviously pairing it with a trigger, because you don't want to lose the value that you have in the game to begin with. The game's got to be loved enough by the dog to override the big scary thing. But yeah, definitely there's time and place for it. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Because I could have just as easily poisoned all the boxes by throwing them in the car with Ped, but I made sure that he loved them enough that it went the other way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today. I really appreciate it. And I know the listeners are going to love hearing about your journey and your expert pivoting skills and some of the fun stuff you're doing now. I can tell you, you have inspired me for sure. Some of your posts about some of the stuff that we have talked about today in the community about your compassion fatigue and also about how you've kind of shifted your services to provide things that are both meaningful for people and dogs in the community and also that are meaningful for you have shifted my perspective a little bit, and it inspired me to try out some new things too. So I thank you for that. And I'm sure that some of our listeners
thank you.
will feel that same gratitude.
That's awesome.
Before we wrap up, could you share with us how people can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So website's a great place to start, and it's just serenitydogtraining.com.au. Serenity Scent Work on Facebook and Instagram.
Well, thank you for everything that you've shared with us today. And we will be sure to link to all of those places in the show notes for folks so they can get in touch with you if they would like to. And from myself, from everybody that's listening, and on behalf of the ATA, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us today, Jess.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
We do, of course, appreciate all of you tuning in as well. And if you have enjoyed this episode and are interested in carrying on the conversation about working with the animals in our lives in the most positive, most fun, and most choice-rich ways, then as mentioned at the start of this episode, the Animal Training Academy community is waiting for you. Head on over to www.atamember.com and click on the membership button in the main menu to learn more about what members are describing as the Netflix social media platform for behavior geeks. That's it for this episode, though. Thank you so much for listening. You'll hear from us again soon.